the Wellness Council of Tampa Bay's 12th Annual Wellness Expo. This year's theme is Refresh and Refocus, Optimizing Wellness in 2022. I am Steve Malla, President of the Wellness Council, and I'm a wellness manager for White & Case, which is a global law firm with an office based here in Tampa. Today's meeting provides us a virtual opportunity to connect with our peers in the local and national corporate well-being space. The power of networking and continued education within our field can sometimes be overlooked, and over the last couple of years has been much more of a challenge to achieve. So today's meeting will bring together wellness professionals to share best practices in preventative well-being and population health. Our keynote sessions will help prepare for 2022 with fresh ideas and the latest practices to engage your staff or your clients in building a culture of well-being in the workplace. I do hope you find this opportunity valuable for your personal and professional development. So once again, please be sure to mute your line if not already muted. If you're joining us for the first time today and are unfamiliar with our organization, please notice our mission here. We are a nonprofit business networking community that provides a forum for corporate health and wellness professionals to network and collaborate on a variety of best practices and educational opportunities in the field of corporate wellness. We often cater to the needs of professional, corporate, and community wellness programmers, as well as vendors who provide services in our community. The council is comprised of a volunteer steering committee that leads the direction of its programming and strategic vision for everyone. I could not be more proud of this group in organizing today's session. So thank you to our steering committee for all the work you've done thus far. Once again, please be sure to mute your line if you're not already muted. We have a wonderful partnership with Gulf Coast North Area Health Education Center, who provides us financial and administrative support, additional avenues of communication, and further helps us align with other organizations and professionals in the health and well-being community here in Tampa. We cannot provide our mission without the continued support from AHAC, so we do thank you and look forward to a continued partnership. Today's agenda features a dual keynote presentation from Chuck Gillespie, CEO of National Wellness Institute, and Michelle Williams, founder and CEO of Wishing Well Works. We also have time to welcome our sponsors for a fun and interactive game, as well as leaving time at the end for open virtual networking. So I would now like to welcome Trish Blocker, Wellness Council's Sponsorship Director, to recognize our sponsors.
Hi, and welcome everybody. In the past 12 years that we've had the council that runs on volunteers, as Steve said, we've been able to offer resources and events like this for free to our members, which makes it very accessible. The only way we can do that is with partnerships with our sponsors. So today, our title sponsor is Baycare. I would like to introduce Donna St. Louis. She is the Vice President of Business Development for Baycare Health Systems. Her responsibilities include all the hospitals, imaging centers, ambulatory surgery centers, home care and lab sales. And she also oversees Baycare's Employer Solutions division, which is able to foster relationships with employers in the community. Donna has been with Baycare for 15 years. She's a registered nurse with a background in critical care and operating rooms. Welcome, Donna, and thank you.
Thank you. Can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So thank you for the introduction. As was said, my name is Donna St. Louis, and I'm Vice President for Employer Solutions over here at Baycare Health System. And we're very happy to be here to be a presenting sponsor, and hope you can gain some valuable information of our little short presentation. So many of you may or may not know Baycare, but in the community, we had 3 pillar hospitals: St. Anthony's Hospital, St. Joseph's Hospital, Morton Plant Hospital. They all came together to form Baycare as you know it today. The thing that really stands out about Baycare is really our employees that care for your loved ones and the quality that we stand for, because without quality, Baycare could not be as successful as it is. Beginning of the pandemic, Baycare has been called upon to assist the community to provide education and safety measures for schools. And we also worked with community leaders to set up the first testing site in Hillsborough County for patients that were concerned about whether or not they had COVID. This was a major endeavor when everyone was concerned about how you could catch COVID. And we spent 16 weeks at Raymond James with other of our community partners testing patients. There's a picture of us out there, but it was a great opportunity to work with other leaders in the industry. But the most important thing was helping patients either get to the appropriate care or give them relief that they were not positive for COVID. Another thing that I'm very proud of what we've done is we were called upon by Tampa International Airport. The travel industry was severely affected by COVID, and they wanted to help jumpstart travel again. So we were able to set up a testing site at Tampa International Airport. We ran that testing site for 7 months. We saw and tested over 22,000 people that were traveling. And this enabled people to get to locations that they would not be able to get to unless they had a negative COVID test, and also helped to jumpstart travel, which was a positive for our community. So I'm very proud of what we've done there. This is some of the offerings that our employer solutions gives to employers. And this is just a sampling. We do preventative screening, obviously flu shots, vaccines, or any kind of education. We have a litany, as you can imagine, of surgeons and physicians that go out to employers and anything that is of concern. Another thing I'd like to point out is this corporate mammo program. Obviously, we're about preventative medicine. So I could stand up here and say you should have your prostate checked, you should have your colonoscopy, but obviously with women's health, mammos are very, very important. And we offer mammo days that an employer could schedule a couple of hours, depending on how large their employees are, and have them come to one of our centers, one of our imaging centers. And for those hours, basically buy out the machines and have, before COVID, we'd have a little party for those employees, but we'd get all their mammograms done and their DEXAs if they needed that as well, and send them on their way. So it was a really nice thing. And we're hoping that we've done it this year. Unfortunately, couldn't have a party, but we gave some bags away with some goodies. But that's really a nice thing to do for your female employees where you work. The next slide is just that employer solutions, that our team supports everyone in the healthcare system. This is a commercial I think that you've probably seen if you watch TV at all. And really this commercial was really just to thank our team members for what they did as we navigated through, the changing times. And also, as you may know, there's definitely a nursage and a healthcare shortage, which is only going to be magnified as we continue through this pandemic. But you can hear the spirit, if you ever see this commercial, in these team members of why they work for Baycare. And it's just a testament to our culture. But our team is represented on this slide as well through corporate wellness, occupational medicine, workers' compensation, Baycare urgent care, our employee assistance programs through our Baycare behavioral health. And then finally, we are excited to continue to partner with you to provide wellness services. Remember, from bariatric screenings, vaccines, to CPR, education, we're here to help. The depth of our resources and experts Baycare has at our fingertips is available to help you and any employer. We have two of our special employees that are also attending today. Jean Marie Scordino, she assists in Pinellas and Pasco counties, and Brittany Lynn assists in Hillsborough and Polk. And they're with us today to maintain and grow our relationships with you. So we appreciate your time. We hope that we can be of an assistance in the future. We hope COVID goes away, but if it doesn't, we're here to help you. We can provide, our physicians that can come out to your site and educate people on just the knowledge of, should I take a vaccine, what it will mean to me, what it won't mean to me. And there's so many questions out there because there's so much publicity, unfortunately, on this vaccine and what it can and can't do for you. But we're here for you through that, and also whatever else you may have as your medical needs. So thank you for your time, and I hope you have a great meeting. Any questions for me?
Yeah, thank you, Donna. We're very blessed to have you in this area. Baycare has been a great partner and great for employee wellness. Okay, Steve, if you want to jump to the next slide. Okay, we also have silver sponsors. Some of these sponsors have been with us since the beginning. So I want to give a shout out to Tampa General, Baycare, Vitality, Florida Department of Health in Pinellas County, and Health and Wellness Professionals. Okay, not only did our silver sponsors sponsor the event, but they also went above and beyond and donated some prizes for our interactive activity that will take place between our presentations. So you will want to make sure you stay online and pay attention, because yes, there will be a quiz. It'll be 2 truths and a lie. So we're looking forward to that. Next slide. So if any of you are interested, we do have sponsorship opportunities available. We have the quarterly meetings, annual meetings, such as today's meeting. I already have a sponsor signed up for next year's meeting. And this year we added a digital 12-month sponsorship that allows your company to put your logo on our website and also add content to our monthly newsletter. So if you're interested, reach out to me at sponsorship@wellcounseltb.org, or you can go onto our website and click the sponsorship tab. And next up will be our guru of all social media, Wendy Weaver.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. It's exciting. We have 70 people on today. I'm really happy to be here. And if you want to get a little bit of Wellness Council of Tampa Bay every day, go to our LinkedIn page. It's Wellness Council of Tampa Bay. And then our Facebook page, which is Wellness Council of Tampa Bay. And then our Instagram page is Wellness Council of Tampa Bay. So we do have a website, as you can see on the slide. It is different than Wellness Council of Tampa Bay. It's wellcounseltb.org. Thank you for putting it in the chat. But we do ask that you like, follow, and share. You know, a lot of people don't read emails, so the way to get connected, and also we're on Facebook Live right now. Hi, virtual world. All right. That's it for me. I'm turning it over to Steve to talk about the Bill Bond Award. Have a great session, guys.
Thanks, Wendy. Before we get started with our first keynote presentation, I wanted to mention that the Wellness Council is now accepting applications for our annual Bill Bond Leadership Award. This award recognizes wellness professionals who have demonstrated leadership in our field. This could be through educational opportunities, innovative programming, or just being a mentor to others. So if you or someone you know has gone above and beyond to support their practice and others in it, please feel free to complete an application on our website, wellnesscounseltb.org. Okay, so I will now like to invite steering committee member Rachel Bozich to introduce our first keynote speaker.
Thank you, Steve. So I have the honor and privilege of introducing our keynote speaker today. Chuck is with us from the National Wellness Institute, where he is the Chief Executive Officer. He has seen firsthand the importance of connecting people, processes, and strategies. His work in the wellness industry has been recognized and utilized nationally and internationally. Over the last 20 years, Chuck has developed numerous workplace and community initiatives, as well as evaluated and consulted with hundreds of organizations on wellness strategies. He is a former human resources executive with responsibilities that included leading workplace wellness efforts that resulted in substantial financial and cultural impact to the company. He has spent time in the classroom teaching for Purdue University and Indiana Wesleyan University. Chuck also holds the National Wellness Institute designation of Certified Wellness Practitioner. Chuck's passion for helping others thrive is hard to miss. He has been recognized as a friend of wellness by the Fisher Institute for Wellness and Gerontology and as a Beacon Community Champion. Chuck was presented with the Holman Health Achievement Award in 2016 and accepted the Healthy 10 Award for the development of the Indiana Healthy Community Initiative from the U.S. Chamber of Commerce Foundation in 2017. Chuck holds degrees from Purdue University and the University of Indianapolis. He is happiest when he's spending quality time with his wife and daughter, doing whatever they want to do, except shopping. So it is my honor to hand it over to Chuck.
Sorry about that. I was struggling with my mute for some reason, but thank you so much, Rachel, and thanks everybody here. We'll be excited about having a little bit of a conversation here for the next few minutes. And one of the things I want you all to realize is that as much as I possibly can, I will be kind of watching the chat, but at the same time, I bring along my own, as I call her, the chief chatterator, Lana Saul, Dr. Lana Saul. She's actually one of the director of wellnesses for NASA over on the other side of town, and very excited about what we can really bring to the show today. Looking forward to a lot more conversations, and I will do everything I can to bring the same energy that Wendy brought to this program today. Real quick, wanted to kind of let you know, a little bit of what we're trying to look at and doing. We're really going to be talking a lot about the evolution of wellness and the competencies you need to succeed. This is an area over the last 2 years, National Wellness Institute has really been focusing our efforts and our time on. In 2020, we conducted a worldwide research project, really focusing in to clarify exactly those key competencies a wellness practitioner needs in order to be truly successful. And we're going to be having a little bit of conversation. We're going to have most of our conversations around that. But what I really wanted to kind of focus in on right now is one of the things that we really struggle with in our space and in our field is what the definition of wellness is. We've seen it being used from everything from cardiovascular surgery all the way down to carpet cleaning. So, and my biggest frustration is just literally about a half a mile down the street from where I live here, there is this absolutely obnoxious place called Vape and Wellness. And I just want to literally take a sledgehammer to that sign. It would make me feel very happy, but then I don't want to go to jail. So we're probably not going to end up doing that. But one of the things we really see is there's so many different types of definitions out there, but also so many of the definitions are very academic in nature. So they're like 14 sentences long, and they really go into a lot of the detail of what we want to do. But at the same time, we really can't remember that. So I want you to remember these 6 words: functioning optimally within the current environment. Because when you really stop and think about it, that is exactly what we're trying to do. What we're trying to get is for people to understand that in order to be in that peak wellness period, you've got to have a healthy environment. And that's really where high-level wellness lives. If you are at peak wellness, but in an unhealthy environment, you have what we refer to as emergent wellness. And again, a healthy environment, but you are in poor health, we can call that protected poor health. And one of the comments that I always make about the protected poor health is this is somebody that can have wellness, but they are just ill. And I always use Dr. Stephen Hawking as a great example. Here's a gentleman that for nearly 50 years was near death. every day. If it wasn't for him strapped and connected to, all of the machines that kept him alive, he would have died. However, at the same time, he had true wellness. He had a purpose in life. He had a network around him, a social network around him that was, extraordinary. He had so many things that were going on, and think about all of the accomplishments that he made. And then, of course, you have that unhealthy environment and that illness, and that's that true poor health. This is where we've really got to start to have this conversation around what health is and what high-level wellness is. And one of the pieces that we're going to be talking about is what are those competencies around it. But what I really like to talk about is how we look to shift the mindsets, behaviors, and practices of every individual that we can think of. This is not an easy job, but I always believe, and what I have seen in my nearly 21 years of being in this space, I have found these 5 questions to be the key questions to ask. And they're simple questions. They're not easy to answer, but they are simple questions to really work towards making sure that we're working with the people, these individuals at their level and where they are. And that question, what do you want to change? Why do you want to make that change? And when you think about that why, that's usually a very much a personal reason. I've heard so many different reasons, everything from went to the doctor, my blood pressure was high, that was enough, to, you know what, that 3rd heart attack made me realize that I probably need to quit that 3-pack-a-day smoking habit. So we've got to understand why they want to make those changes. Then the next question is are you ready to make it? But you have to take it one more question, and that is, are you ready today? Are you ready now? Once we're there, then, and only then, we have to ask that question of how can we help? And that's where the programming and the services and the accountability and the opportunities to really make those shifts happen. We've got to get them to that. Are you ready now? And then how can we help? And then, of course, you've got that support and accountability piece of how did you do? Or how are you doing? This is really what we've got to be thinking about as we look to be able to build these cultures of health so that our employees, our people, our individuals, our communities can function optimally within the current environment. And as I said, in 2020, the National Wellness Institute really built out this research, and we ultimately came up with 27 separate competencies underneath 5 specific domains of our wellness promotion competency model. This model is a groundbreaking standard for wellness practitioners. We started the initial one in 2017. As I said, updated it in 2020, submitted the information to a peer-reviewed journal, the International Community Wellbeing Journal, and this will be actually put in the International Community Wellbeing Journal next month for being able to show it as a peer-reviewed piece. So this is truly evidence-based. But what we want to do is we want to take it to the next level. We want to make it evidence-informed. We want to make sure that these are the pieces and the ways that people really move forward, which is why the Wellness Promotion Competency Model is the foundation for the National Wellness Institute's Certified Wellness Practitioner Credential. And that's going to be something that you're going to be seeing quite a bit of in the coming year. Our collaboration with that research, we did it with an institutional review board process with Butler University. I've got a really strong relationship at Butler University, having lived here in Indianapolis, and have worked with that group for a number of years, but really was excited about what we have come up with and the courses and the tests that we are going to be looking at to create that Certified Wellness Practitioner credential. But one of the things that we've always talked about, and this is really how we've got to think about things, there is so much going on with planning, but how are you doing with executing? And this to me is where the competencies come into play. Because again, you can create a good plan, but if you have poor execution, you're really probably not going to have a whole lot of success. You can have bad execution and a bad plan, and let's face it, that's going to be an ultimate failure. The key is making sure that you have a good plan with a good execution. But as you can see from the research by Donald Hambrick, David Nadler, and Michael Tushman, only 4% of everything that is being done has both a good plan and a good execution. Now, what I thought was interesting was as we started to put these two quadrants together, and again, the quadrant on the left is from Dr. Halbert Dunn. Dr. Dunn was the what is considered to be the father of the high-level wellness definition, and really the start of the modern wellness movement. So when we think, and this is from the 1950s, early 60s. So when we think about those four quadrants, and then we look at the fact that there's such a focus on environment as well as your health, and then you put it next to the execution comparison, I just thought it was very interesting that we really saw a very strong correlation to it. We've got to remember, wellness is not just about diagnosis and treatment. It's not about symptoms. It's not about prescriptions or comments like, you need to relax, or you need to lose weight, or you need to get more sleep. What we've really got to do is we've got to get to the point where we're saying things like, you need to relax, and here's how we can help you do that. Are you ready to make that change? Are you ready to look towards getting that relaxation techniques going? And until they're ready, we're still just going to have to continue to try to promote and communicate and really get them persuaded to move in that direction. Let's be perfectly clear. Our medical system is phenomenal. It is designed for ill care. We've got a lot of opportunity to flip a lot of what's going on in this space towards well care. But as I've talked to many a CEO of health systems all over the United States, you've just got to remember that 90+% of what they make in their revenues is towards the ill care side of the equation. But I've had enough conversations. One particular CEO that I've got a good relationship with, have for a number of years, I asked him a simple question, and that was, what percentage of well care needs to happen in the health system before there is a true shift from ill care to well care? And his comment was 25%. So we've got to go from, 95 to 75% in order for the revenue generation and the strategic systems to be able to really switch around from thinking about ill care versus well care. And I've loved his comment right after he said that. He goes, Chuck, I don't know if that's going to be in 2 years, 10 years, or 100 years. But what's going to happen is the minute it hits that number, you're going to see a huge flip really fast. And this is something that we have to be prepared with, because let's face it, and then this is his comments exactly, the health systems are not the fastest to shift. So we've got to really be thinking about it from that much perspective. So when we think about it, though, this is a must. This is an executable must, because if not, we're going to continue down the same path that we have. And let's face it, the last 50 years, we haven't really seen a lot of shift. In fact, the shift that we have seen is towards the unhealthier, not necessarily towards healthier. So we've got to be thinking about it from that perspective. Corporations have an amazing amount of health and wellness data in front of you, in front of them. They put together the plans, they provide but they don't provide the training. They don't provide the support. They don't provide the resources that are needed. Some do better than others, but you're still looking at so much of the time and energy is still being spent on the health informatics. Again, I have probably, in my last 20 years or so, I have probably audited or reviewed well over 250 different corporations, everything from Fortune 100 companies all the way down to the mom and pop small businesses. What I have seen over and over again is not very many organizations know what to do with biometric screen data. So why is more health data really going to help them in executing their plan? They have a good plan, they are just not executing on it. So these are the kind of things that we've really got to start to think about and understand. What is being touted as wellness? What are we looking at? Is it physical health, mental health? Both very important, both a major part of your wellness strategy, but both need more than that. We've got to shift our population towards high-level wellness to ensure that the focus is on creating environments conducive to optimal functioning. Rather than spend the time and the resources on executing the plan, we're spending too much time and money on the data points, and then we don't understand what to do with those data points. We've got to simplify what we're thinking about, and we've got to look towards that next level. And that's exactly why we created the Wellness Competencies model. This is really that framework for how to strengthen your wellness professionals, gain additional knowledge, skills, and abilities so that they can drive a multidimensional, multicultural, high-level wellness initiative. These competencies ensure that the plan itself is doable and has the greatest opportunity to be executable. As I stated, there are 27 different competencies within these 5 categories. Today, we just don't have enough time. We're really not going to be able to go into it too deeply, but we've got to have to kind of look at it, and we'll break it down into these 5 categories that you're seeing here: whole person systems, inclusive and responsive practices, communication and connection, legal and ethical principles, and authenticity and self-awareness. I'm really excited about where these conversations start to allow us to go. And I'm really hoping to get some insight from each and every one of you. So I will be watching. And again, Lana, thanks for everything that you're doing already in the chat. But I'm going to be watching the chat as we kind of move along. And so don't be afraid to ask questions as we move forward now. But know that there's also going to be plenty of time here at the end for some additional conversations. With that, I'm going to get started by really talking about each one of the 5 domains of our wellness promotion competency model. I always like to start at this point, the whole person and systems approach. One of the things that we continue to hear and continue to see over and over again is our systems. They're broke. They're not working. We've got a situation where we've got to make sure that we can keep the system that we have now moving forward. But at the same time, how do we start to approach a new system? What is that system going to look at? And when you think about the definition of system, again, I'm going to read it right off the slide here. A mindset, more than a prescribed practice, systems thinking provides an understanding of how individuals can work together in different types of teams, and through that understanding, create the best possible processes to accomplish just about anything. One of the comments that I tend to make sometimes, and again, I say it because I want to start the conversation. Do you remember back in 2008, 2009, the famous lines, "too big to fail"? I'm actually of the opinion that our health system is too big to fix. And I say that very, very specifically, that each part of our health system may actually be pretty good, but collectively, it's not going to be able to continue to thrive in any way, shape, or form. When we talk about why do I say a comment like that? I say, well, let's look at our health statistics over the last, say, 30 years. Where have we seen improvement? Well, we've seen some improvement in very specific types of chronic disease management. What an amazing accomplishment. People can live longer with these chronic diseases. The medications that are keeping people alive, keeping people moving forward, doing those things, the technologies that are available to us, phenomenal, fantastic. But at the same time, we're not seeing a very specific growth in our longevity. In fact, our longevity is going down. People are, this is one of the first generations that we've talked about where the children are in a worse position than their parents. So we're not actually growing and moving people forward from a financial perspective, from an economic perspective, from a health perspective. All of these things are because we're not looking at things from a whole person approach. When we think of it, there's too much time. It's like, you know what? You need to lose weight. So here's a weight loss program. Well, that's great, but we need to start asking the next question. That next question needs to be something like, tell me about your environment at home. Tell me about your work environment. Tell me about what you do with your friends and your family. Tell me about your physical activity status. Tell me about the safety of your community where you would actually provide or we would actually conduct your physical activity. Do you feel safe when you're doing that? Are there opportunities to be able to expand those kind of opportunities? Do you like eating different types of food? Are you willing to kind of try new things? All of these are the kind of questions that we just don't have time in a treatment and diagnosis mindset to get there. we're just saying lose weight, and I'll see you next year. Great. Okay, what does the next year look like? Well, for most people, they've either gotten worse or they've at least not gotten, but they haven't probably gotten better. Such a small percentage of people are doing that. This is what we've got to do. We've got to get out of this siloed approach to what's going on. It's health and wellness. It's not health and wellness. It's not one thing. It's got to look at both and really build off of what's going on from that perspective. And that's because we have to take this whole person and systems approach. Secondly, and this is really what I would consider to be one of the most important parts of your entire wellness initiative, your wellness strategy. What is your communication and connection strategy? Are you communicating to everybody, or are you just kind of throwing a one big piece of promo out to as many people as you possibly can in hopes that it works? I will tell you, we've got to get to that stage where our communications and our connections are looking at it from that whole person perspective. We cannot anticipate somebody being able to believe in a communication as one part of what's going on. I will tell you, the most successful wellness programs that I have seen over the last 20 years, usually well over half their budgets are focused on making sure that they have a very multicultural, multidimensional approach to their communications message. In other words, they're speaking languages to different people, and they're trying to make sure that they're doing it within a way that they can make it happen. So it's not, at the workplace, it's not just an email blast out to everybody. Maybe it's the Potty Press or the Stall Street Journals. Yes, I still love those names. I think those are some of my favorites of all time. It's posters, it's word of mouth, it's making sure that your frontline supervisors are trained to be able to have those conversations. It's training those frontline supervisors and others on things like, for instance, mental health first aid, or how do we make sure that people understand not just how to save money or how to save towards retirement or do budgeting. We got to go to a high level, much more high level of financial wellness. We got to talk about that relationship with money. What are you doing with it? Are you going through the Starbucks line for the 37th time? Do you really need 37 cups of Starbucks in one day? These are the kind of conversations of what we've got to do. We've got to really understand what's going on in those minds of each and every person, and really build that communications channel so that we are talking to people to persuade them to get to the point where they're ready to make their change today so that we can truly make them help. And this is such a piece of critical importance, and something that I will tell you we need to spend a lot more time and a lot more energy on. And if we don't, we're going to continue down the same paths. And I just don't think that's where we want to be. Legal and ethical principles, I think this is pretty common sense perspectives, but it's not something that you can just say, oh yeah, we're going to be legal and we're going to be ethical. I always talk about my ethics professor in my master's program, and I loved his first day. His first day, he literally wrote up on the whiteboard, an A equals $100, B equals $60, a C equals $40, a D equals 20, and an F equals 10. And then we had an entire ethical conversation about whether or not buying your grade was ethical. Well, are we trying to buy people's health? Are we trying to buy people's well-being? Are you really looking at making sure that what you are doing fits within the Affordable Care Act, fits within GINA, ERISA, all the, as I jokingly call them, all the adjective or all the I lost my train of thought there for just a second. Basically, governments always have acronyms. That's the word I'm looking for. We're looking at all these acronyms, making sure that we're meeting all those acronyms, EEOC, you just can keep going down it. And then making sure that we also have that ethics side of it. Do we want to make sure that our people feel safe with us and we can provide both legally and ethically what's going on? Back in February, the National Wellness Institute actually acquired the Wellness Compliance Institute for that specific reason. And that is because we really feel like this is such an important part of what's going on in our society, that we want to make sure that there are going to be not only the legal side, but there's codes of conduct, and there's opportunities to really save into what's going on and ensure that those ethics are really a part of what we're trying to build out and do. Then, of course, you have this authenticity and self-awareness. I need to know how I'm going to act, but I also need to show that authenticity. And I think, I do a pretty good job. Lana, you can tell me if I'm not, but I do a pretty good job of being very authentic in everything that I do. When you meet me, I'm pretty much the exact same person that you're seeing here on this video. You definitely know, especially you sit right behind me, you can tell I am a proud Purdue Boilermaker, especially since we're the #1 basketball team in the nation right now, and the first time we've ever been as the #1 team in the nation. So it's kind of cool seeing what's going on there. But we're really looking, and by the way, I think Penn State got lucky getting the Outback Bowl this year. I'm a little upset about that one, but that's beside the point. But this authenticity really becomes such an important part. If you're trying to sell or persuade people to get things done, and you're not authentic yourself, and you're not self-aware of what you're at and where you are good, that's really 100% of the problems that we can run into. Because, and again, as a former HR director, I was always very leery about trying to do any kind of surveys if we weren't going to do anything with the information that we gathered from those surveys. Because there's the quickest way to become inauthentic is surveying people over and over again and then never reporting the results and never explaining how we use the results and never explain how we are going to try to solve some of the problems that we found in those kinds of surveys. So these are some things that we have such a great opportunity to do. And by the way, a biometric screen is a great example. We keep doing them, but we don't do anything with the information. Why would people continue to do them? This is the whole perspective of what we got to do. So we've got to make sure that we stay authentic, and we've got to make sure that we're self-aware of what's going on. And again, always think about it from an inclusive and responsive practice. In 2015, National Wellness Institute started its very first multicultural competency committee that resulted in 2019 in the development of our multicultural competency training. We now call that Beyond DEI because we really are looking at it not necessarily from the policy and the development perspective, and that's typically what diversity, inclusion, and equity kind of tend to talk through, especially as you start to get into the workplaces. What we want to do is we want to say, that's great, but in order to truly be a DEI organization, we have to be multiculturally competent. We have to understand, how to talk, how to really think about what's going on, and really looking at how we can make those inclusive and responsive practices happen. But we've got to have that sense of belonging. I can tell you, you can have two 50-year-old males living in Tampa that are both smokers and both want to quit smoking. But if we don't understand their background and we don't understand what's going on, one of them might be, say, dealing with PTSD from military service. The other one might have an abusive home life or a toxic work environment that is causing them to have some of these stressors that are happening. So even people that look the same don't necessarily have the, can't necessarily be, oh, well, the smoking cessation program, here's your one. No, one person may need something different than the other. And we've got to get out of this one size fits all mentality, because really, in all honesty, one size fits one. And we've got to make sure that that's a communicated message. Again, oh, by the way, and again, I'm going to have Lana put this in there. Watch in January, everybody, for an opportunity to be one of our pilot participants of our new training or our new test for our certified wellness practitioner, because I'm really excited about where we're going with this. And we're really looking at needing over the next 3 to 6 months, about 3 months or so, of folks to take the test. We're going to do it at a reduced price. And I just want to make sure that you guys were aware that that's going to be coming probably 1st of January. Well, let's see. Did I forget anything? Yeah, I forgot quite a bit. So let's keep moving here just a little bit. Again, as I've talked about, we've got to think multidimensionally. It's really looking at all factors of what's going on. But here's what I'll tell you. You're going to see over the next few years, National Wellness Institute specifically focusing on the social dimension and the spiritual dimension. Social, how a person contributes to their environment and community, and how to build better living spaces and social networks. And then spiritual, the development of belief systems, values, and creating a worldview. Everything really does, in my opinion, and the data that we're seeing comes from that social and spiritual piece. When you think about your occupational wellness, I don't know about you, but I can look at probably most of my jobs, if not every single one of the jobs that I have gotten, I got because of my network, my social connected network. And the reason I got those jobs is because the values that I presented and I believe in matched that occupational organization's values. Physical activity, physical wellness. What I have seen over and over again is if you have a social connection to your physical wellness, in other words, if you have other people that you work out with or other people that you connect with and do things with, that's when that physical activity becomes much more sustainable. Emotional wellness, oh my gosh, social isolation is in my opinion, it's still the #1 issue that we're going to be dealing with for years to come. And that just got exacerbated by the COVID-19 pandemic. And we've got to really start to understand how that emotional wellness piece and social connection is such a critical part. In fact, I just put out on LinkedIn from the National Wellness Institute a article talking about the fact that people are going back to gyms. And part of the reason why is because they need that in-person interaction. I thought that was a very interesting way of looking at things. So really look and understand how we've got to really build out all those aspects of social interaction, spiritual. We've got to think about it as a multidimensional way, but we also have to think multiculturally. How do we make sure that we're looking at that personal and family side of things? How are we looking at the community? The community you live in is a big indicator. In fact, it's probably the #1 indicator of your overall health. You know, CDC comes out over and over again, talks about the fact that zip code is a better indicator of your wellness and health than your DNA code. So really understand how this is such an important part. By the way, if you're over 40, the research out there will tell you that anybody that's over 40, the way you can determine your longevity is by your social network. Again, goes back to our foundation of social and what that's all about. Think about it from those kind of perspectives. We have inventories available to you that you can really kind of be able to take on and move forward. But what I really want to kind of start with is just some simple but effective programming. And by the way, this is really where Michelle is going to really get into it in a much more structured way. And I'm really excited about what she's going to be able to present to you. So I'm just going to go through it very quickly on a couple of things. One of the things that I will always say is begin with a simple concept. Start by making sure that people aren't getting worse. One of my favorite "Don't Get Worse" campaigns is thinking about it from a very, very simple perspective. If you smoke 5 cigarettes a day, don't smoke 6. If you eat fast food, 2 times a day, don't eat it 3. If you go to Starbucks 37 times, don't go 38. But you can turn that around. If you run 5 miles a day, don't run 4. If you eat 5 servings of vegetables a day, don't eat 4. If you are getting 8 hours of sleep a day, don't get 7. It goes both ways, which is why I love a "Don't Get Worse" campaign. By the way, it's a very simple book. Wendy, I'm glad to see you have the Zero Trends book. I would recommend Shared Value, Shared Results, which is Dee's second book with Jennifer Pitts. Both of them. Dee's been a long time mentor of mine. So I've very been lucky to, as I say, sit at the foot of Dee Eddington many times. But Jennifer has also been doing some great work, particularly in that psychological side of things. But we've got to keep the healthy people healthy, and we've also got to create that culture of wellness for everyone. I think we spend too much time and we don't spend enough efforts reminding ourselves that environment matters. Again, going back to our 6 words, functioning optimally within the current environment. We've got to make sure that we create those cultures of health for everyone. You know, we've got right on our thing right there. It says you can click here. We've got a wonderful set of 122 different low cost or no cost ideas that we can bring to you anytime you want it. And it goes into physical activity, it goes into nutrition, it goes into stress management, tobacco, program support. The one thing I will say is while there's 122 different programs that you can really look at here, don't just copy and paste. If you're copying and pasting, you're going to fail. You've got to make it, make it something that is personalized to your audience. Ensure that those things are happening in the ways that you need to be looking at them. And that's such an important factor. Habits. These are three of my favorite books that I've ever read. B.J. Fogg, Tiny Habits. James Clear, Atomic Habits, and Charles Duhigg, Power of Habit. Quality is not an act, it's a habit. We've got to make sure that our quality is moving to the direction of what we need to be looking at. And these tiny habits, I remember, I love BJ's philosophy of, one of the things that he started to do was after he went to the bathroom, he did 10 push-ups. These are those things that you can really start to put into play and start to make those small changes that change everything. James Clear has been really doing some great stuff with his philosophies of the tiny habits. And we've really got to be looking at it from that perspective. So I'm going to take BJ Fogg's model behavior here. And just remember, if you have high motivation, the harder you can do things that are much harder in your abilities to make those things happen. If you don't have a lot of motivation, you really need to do some of the more simple things. And as you start to have much more motivation, you can make those simple things become harder and harder to do. So how do we change when change is hard? That's a great one too. I've actually read that one too, if I'm not mistaken, Wendy. But yeah, how do we change when change is hard? That's what we do. We got to start with the simple habits. So start with these kind of comments. After I go to the bathroom, I will do 10 push-ups. Think about it. I love, after I brush, I will floss one tooth. It's like, yeah, you're really going to stop at one tooth. But these are the things that we have to do. We've got to think about it from that very simplistic way. All of a sudden, you do that one tooth. Now suddenly you're motivated to do the other 20 plus teeth that you have in your mouth. This is really what we've got to be thinking about, those tiny habits, those tiny perspectives of what's going on. Big fan of what we're really looking at it from that perspective. And then I don't know if anybody's ever run into Mel Robbins, but I love Mel Robbins' 5-second rule. And again, what is the 5-second rule? It's really a recognition, a meta recognition tool that creates immediate and lasting behavior change. Why? Because what you're doing is you're trying to outrun your brain. That's really what it's all about. I'm telling you guys right now, I had lunch with a dear friend of mine, actually was on my board of directors when I was with the Wellness Council of Indiana. Had a great conversation the other day. She ordered broccoli. And I'm like, I wanted the French fries so badly. But I was like, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'll take the broccoli. So there's a great opportunity where I had a little bit of peer pressure, but at the same time, I didn't let my brain get excited about those French fries. I went ahead and got the broccoli, and I'm happy about it. I did choose wisely, didn't I? But I love this 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 mindset. Again, Lana, who works for NASA, she likes 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 because she gets to then see rocket ships go up into the air, which is really cool. But we've got to be thinking about it from that perspective. Let's not make ourselves get into analysis paralysis. Let's not make ourselves start to think too much for what's going on, of where we are and how we're doing things. We've really got to just kind of ready, set, go. We've got to do that. We've got to get moving. That's the executable. Again, going back to exactly where we were at the very beginning. This is where a good plan plus good execution equals success. It's not the other way around. With that, I will take some questions if you have them. Otherwise, I'm more than happy to thank everybody for being here today and look forward to hearing Michelle and the conversations that you will have with her.
Thank you so much, Chuck. My name is Deborah Cheek, and I will move forward to introduce Michelle, and we'll certainly open it up to Q&A. That was an excellent presentation. We appreciate that. So Michelle Williams is the founder and CEO of Wishing Well Works, a corporate wellness company in the Tampa Bay area in Florida. She has a master's degree in human relations with a concentration in behavioral health, and has been working in the corporate wellness world since 2007. She serves companies across the Bay Area, including Pinellas County Schools, Hillsborough County Government, Florida Orthopedics, Mettler, Toledo, Cigna, Aetna, just to name a few. She has a passion for helping their clients understand how their behaviors, habits, addictions, and environments impact their health choices. Prior to opening Wishing Well Works, she served as a director of student wellness at Boston University and the employee wellness director at Beth Israel Medical Center. In her downtime, she loves traveling with her family, reading, and spending time outside. So thank you for being here, Michelle.
Thank you. I'm very excited. So let me just get my screen shared here just a second. All right, so you guys can all see that, I take it. So thank you so much for the lovely introduction, Deborah. So like she said, my name is Michelle Williams. I own Wishing Well Works, and we are a corporate wellness company here in Tampa Bay. I started Wishing Well Works probably in 2007, but did it part-time while I worked for the Tampa Bay area YMCAs. And about 4.5 years ago, I went out on my own full-time. And so we started as sort of just myself doing health education, because that's what I've been doing for a long time. And slowly over the years, we've added pretty much every wellness service you can imagine. So we're sort of looking at all of this systemic stuff that Chuck just shared, which was really very interesting. And he and I had a lovely conversation yesterday about how our two worlds kind of collide in a variety of ways. But so I'm going to kind of talk a little bit about how we can dive deeper into corporate wellness and sort of move away from that wellness of yesteryear with lunch and learns, health fairs, biometric screenings, and sort of look at some different things that we can do that are a little bit more engaging and perhaps address some of the health issues that people have from a behavioral and habitual perspective. So with that, we'll go get started. And I don't have a chatterator with me today, unfortunately, so I will try my best to keep an eye on our chat today, but I will leave about 5 minutes or so at the end where I'm happy to answer any questions. So first, just a little bit.
We got your back. Don't worry. We got you.
Okay. All right. Good. So just a little bit about what we do. We do work with companies all over Tampa Bay. I do also have a couple of clients in Boston because that's where I'm originally from. But we do things as little as a single session for some companies. And then we also do annual comprehensive branded wellness programs for other companies. So we're very fortunate. We have about 175, I think it might be up to about 190 different titles that we can provide. And all of them sort of go into the how and why aspects instead of just the what. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that. But we also do virtual health fairs, food demos, massage, Group X. You can kind of see the list there. And we recently just started sending out wellness boxes to company employees because since they're working from home, we thought, well, we could send them things that they can use, and then the education is on the on the screen. But then we can say, take out the resistance band, and here's some resistance band exercises, or different tools like that. So it helps people actually practically use the information that we're providing. So of course, COVID changed everything, but wellness has been changing since it began. I know that when I first did anything professionally for wellness, I was a personal trainer, which probably many people started as Group X instructors or personal trainers. And I did that for a few years. And back then it was very, no pain, no gain. And, we talked some about nutrition, but mostly exercise and fitness, right? And, we've, as wellness educators, and many of you serve in those roles as well, we've known for a long time that our practice of self-care is what keeps us healthy. And so if we are, not doing some of the things that make us healthy, then we tend to get sick more and we tend to be sick for longer. So if we can sort of help people understand that wellness is not just about weight loss or about gaining muscle or about preventing or minimizing risk of chronic disease, and it's more about living so good and you're energized and you're ready to take on the day. That's sort of the piece I think that has been missing since maybe the last few years. And then of course, when COVID struck, at least for myself and probably for many of you, life changed completely. I mean, I had been working from home prior to that, but not with my children in the house, trying to do school in this room and office in this room and, so on and so forth. So it was a little bit of a change, and it allowed myself, and then as I started talking to my clients, them as well, to really assess their lives and look at it from, what am I doing that's making me feel so stressed, or that's, limiting my ability to get a full night's sleep, or that's making me have this desire to eat high sugar, high saturated fat foods at 10 o'clock at night. And much of that comes from things like chronic stress and lack of sleep. And so, hopefully over the next year or two, more and more people will start to see, well, if I can continue up with these changes, even when things go back to the normal or the new normal, whatever it might be, that potentially we can, sort of make those changes and keep them going on in the future. But I think one of the things that we've seen a lot of is the mental health aspects has been probably the biggest piece. And I can remember having this conversation with one of my friends, maybe, April or May of 2020. And I said, the physical stuff is a big part of COVID for sure. But what I'm more worried about as a parent and also as a wellness practitioner is the mental health piece. We've seen that in the US, the diagnoses of anxiety and depression have gone up 50% from 4 in 10 adults up to 4 in 10 adults from 1 in 10 adults. So that's a big jump there. We also see a big mental health crisis in our young people, particularly those that are between the ages of 12 and 18. And that is, scary on a lot of levels because they don't have the coping skills that adults have. And so, yes, they probably have a little more resiliency, but they don't necessarily have the tools to help them deal with that. And so when we talk about wellness from our perspective, we talk a lot about how it's important to be inclusive of the family and making sure that people's environments are supportive of their wellness efforts. But COVID taught us, many of us that, people who had the most difficulty, and of course there are, outsiders there, but people who had the most difficulty with COVID-19 are people that were outside of, being over 75 or having 1 or 2 or more comorbidities, were those who struggled with being overweight or obese, and people who had poor lifestyle habits, which is really everything that we talk about in the wellness world in general. So, of course, it makes sense that to have an effective wellness strategy, it needs to address some of these systemic risk factors of chronic disease, while also making sure that it helps people with where they are. What are their support systems like? What does their environment look like? What does their access look like? Certainly financial capability has a piece of it. So all 4 of those factors, along with the psychological piece of addictions, habits, and behaviors, have to be part of an effective wellness strategy overall. So we, like Chuck was saying before, and I thought that was a great comment, is, our healthcare system, while it's great and has all of these amazing tools and capabilities, really does focus on illness and treating symptoms and treating disease and managing disease. And, you know, as a wellness person, I am extremely passionate about helping people sort of prevent that and learn how they can reduce the mitigation of these types of issues. Because, you know, it's great to live to 85, but if you don't live well from 60 to 85, that's not so great. So we really want to help people do what they can to live longer, healthier, right? And so those are kind of two different pieces there. So it's really important for us to look at how our overall society and environments can create barriers to good health overall. So one of the examples I give often is, you know, we look at the items that we're allowed to put in food, or that food companies are allowed to put in food. Many of them are not allowed in food in other countries, but here they are. And we know that some of those products cause different things like attention problems, focus problems, inflammation in the body. And so we're eating all of these things, and then we get all of these symptoms, and then we go treat the symptoms. So if we can learn about how to look at our food as fuel and what it's going to do for our bodies or not do for our bodies, and try to make choice based on that, that's a step in the right direction. But many of us are, you know, we're working full time, we have regular non-wellness related jobs, we have children, we're maybe taking care of elderly parents. I fit into that. I'm a sandwich generation. I have a pretty sick mother and mother-in-law, so, and then 2 kids that are under the age of 12. So, you know, I understand all of that. And so I think my gurus and I bring that to the table and say, look, we know this is tough, right? So here's some very practical approaches to things that you can do that don't take a full hour or don't require so much of your attention, because we know that your attention is all over the place. So, you know, looking at some of those barriers, and they can include things like basic access. And certainly with COVID, I think the access has gotten much better, because now so many people are doing virtual programming, there's virtual group exercise, there's all sorts of different things that you can do online. Cost is often a barrier for some people, because some of these things can be expensive. And so that's one of the areas that I love about corporate wellness, because in general, that's free for the employees and the company is paying for it. It can also, some of the other barriers, of course, are lack of knowledge or lack of experience. So for folks who don't know how to strength train, they are very likely not going to try it, because either they're afraid of how they'll look, or they're afraid of injuring themselves, or they're afraid of not being able to, you know, kind of meet the goals that they have, and so on and so forth. So the more of that sort of educational and experiential approach we can take in wellness programs can be really beneficial. And then certainly, of course, there's also the lack of support that many people, you know, have to deal with. Not everyone has somewhere they can bring their kids in order to participate in wellness activities. Some people live in homes where one person is a smoker and the other person isn't, or, you know, and, you know, so on and so forth. And then, of course, we have to look at our addictions. And I don't just mean addictions to tobacco and nicotine, but addictions to certain foods, addictions to inactive lifestyles, addictions to nighttime eating, so on and so forth. Alcohol is a big part. In fact, alcohol sales went up 42% during COVID, which is, you know, quite high, especially for a country that already had pretty high alcohol use in general. So when we're talking about sort of developing our wellness program overall, we want to make sure that we're addressing all of these different varieties of items, because all of them affect people's choices with how they participate in healthy living. So the wellness hybrid model has really come to fruition, I think, over the last, you know, 18 months or so. So many companies, of course, are now offering different types of work models. So some companies are full on site, some companies are doing hybrid, where their employees work part-time in the home and part-time in the office, and other companies have ditched the office completely and are just doing work from home permanently. And so how does that change our wellness programs? And is the wellness program that you all are providing your employees, or that you are discussing with your clients, able to meet that need? So some of the things that we want to look for are, of course, web-based programming and making sure that our employees have access to these. And one of the best parts, I think, about the virtual part of it is that even if a person can't attend live, they are recorded and then they are sent out for somebody to view on their own timing. So that's that 24/7 availability of programming. The second thing is to make sure that we have some sort of engagement or interaction in these programs, because I don't know about you guys, but I know I have webinar fatigue, not only from all the ones that I teach, but also just meetings online and social, you know, for the first probably year or so, we did a lot of our social stuff online. So it became very screen heavy. And I think people got some of that Zoom fatigue or webinar fatigue in there. So I like to try to make sure that the programs aren't, you know, just a person presenting on a topic. If you can in your wellness programs, including the families, because again, that's a really important piece. And the younger that we can get to people and helping them understand different aspects of health, the better it is, because understand that, you know, whatever habits you develop as a child, you tend to take with you into adulthood unless you make some sort of a change, right? And so if you ate a certain way as a kid, you probably have a lot of those habits still sticking around because that's the time when you learned how to eat, right? So, you know, if there's ever an opportunity to include children in some of this information, or, you know, having a program that's more child focused, that's, you know, giving a kid the world, because then they will be able to make healthy choices and won't, and it's kind of along that line of what Chuck was talking about, where we're keeping the healthy, right? So we have to be paying attention to that piece of it. Next, I think it's important to have partnerships with national brands. So whether that be a gym or a bank or a food company, or, you know, and I'll talk to you guys about some of the partnerships that we have, but that's really helpful, because especially with companies that are doing the work from home permanently, it helps to say, well, there's a PNC bank in, you know, these 26 states, or, you know, there's a YMCA, or there's a Crunch Fitness, or whatever the case may be, so that people can take the knowledge and then practically use it in their own communities. And then lastly, I think having some of that home-based products and services is really helpful too. So, you know, meaning getting deliveries of items, or, you know, sending employees educational material in the mail, just so that it hits them from different angles and not just straight through email. So the wellness of yesteryear, I think we've probably all been to many of these and probably hosted many of them as well. But, you know, Lunch and Learn's still great. But I mean, I would say that at the moment we're doing probably about 90% of our programming virtually and 10% on site. But, you know, I think that will change as things go on. But, you know, a typical Lunch and Learn sort of addresses topics on a very, you know, shallow level, where there's not enough information on the deeper level of the topic. So yes, we can teach people how to read a food label, and that's extremely valuable. But why do we want to teach them about reading a food label? And how do we teach them to read a food label? Those are really important things. And how do we say, you know, hey, go into your pantry and pull out 5, you know, boxes that you have in there, and let's look at the label specifically, so you can really see the things that you're eating and how they compare to what's recommended. So, and, you know, and that's just one area, but, you know, trying to make sure that the topics go deep enough where we're addressing some of that, like Chuck was talking about, the environment and the access, and understanding somebody's individual needs and their own psychology and what they have available to them to help them the best way that we can. Biometric screenings, I've never been a fan of these, just as from a personal standard. I know that they cost about $60 a test. For most people, when they get them done at the workplace, they're not fasting. And then they get a piece of paper, and then the idea is that they're supposed to go to their doctor to follow up. But I just read a recent review of that, and about 12 to 18% of employees do that, and the rest don't. So I've been telling our clients, you know, skip the biometric screenings and instead encourage your employees to go visit their primary care physician, get those tests while they're there, and then create that relationship, and then give them $50, which is less than the cost, the test of the the cost of the test and for doing it, right? Because then they have that relationship with their doctor, which by the way is very important. And they get a blood test when they're fasting, so the results are probably a little bit better. And, you know, they then have a chain of connection between themselves and a medical provider. And that's really what's important when we're discussing sort of chronic disease and the development of them. And then lastly, health fairs, right? So we've all been to them where we, you know, sit in a room with 15 other vendors, and the employees come around, they grab, you know, the tchotchkes and the paper off the table, and then they go back to their desks. And I would venture to say that 80% of the stuff they pick up gets put in the trash eventually. So instead of having those sort of on-site events, which can be not only costly, but they also require a lot of coordination and can be, you know, a pretty difficult feat to put together, try thinking about different ways, like a virtual health fair. And that's something that we started doing actually in July of 2020, and they have been very successful, and people love them because it's all on demand and the employees can visit whenever they want, and they can get access to you know, lots of different information, not only from the vendors that their company works with, but also just health in general. So some steps to take to make your employee wellness program better for the years moving forward. One of the things I think is very important is to brand your wellness program. So I don't know if you saw on the first screen, but some of the companies that do these branded programs with us, I mean, the brand of the wellness program goes in line with what the company does. So for instance, Bausch & Lomb is one of our companies, and they make that contact solution and other things for vision. So their program is called the Healthy Vision Program. It has a logo, and the employees see it on everything around their building, and they connect it to the wellness program. And they're like, oh yeah, Healthy Vision, I got to type in my stuff to get my points. And so it kind of gives the employee, it makes it more personalized and more recognized to the employees that are just doing their jobs each and every day. Second idea is to provide programs, again, like I said, to address health on a deeper level. And I'm going to go further into that in just a few slides. But, you know, again, really making sure that we're talking about that how and why versus just the what. Ensuring employees are motivated to participate. And this kind of comes from two ways. So of course we have external motivation and internal motivation. So external motivation is motivation that is guided by some external force. So think money, prizes, because my doctor told me to, so on and so forth. And internal motivation is because of something that comes from inside. So I want to do it because it's a goal I have for myself, or because I want to, you know, reduce my own inflammation, or whatever the case may be. And then also motivated within the work culture, right? One of the things that we see a lot is the employees really get interested in wanting to do some of these things, some of these wellness things, but their work schedule doesn't allow them to, or the way that their workplaces are set up doesn't give them the opportunity to go to a seminar or to log on to a webinar, or maybe they don't have a computer. You know, sometimes we work in manufacturing sites and then not everyone has a computer. So we have to make sure that the wellness program addresses all of the different needs of each type of worker that is present in that office space. For allowing employees to access programming in ways that work for them. So that kind of comes with making sure that your wellness program is not just one type of thing, like not just webinars, but we also maybe would do a fitness competition, or maybe we would do health coaching, or maybe we would do cooking demonstrations, just different types of things, so that people that maybe are webinar fatigued could learn at a food demo, or maybe they could learn from a card that gets sent to them in the mail, or a text messaging app, or something like that. Just different ways to address and get the information out there. And then lastly, I think it's vitally important to connect with your local business partners to increase practical use of your wellness programs. So, you know, finding discounts to different places that do corporate membership, or, you know, helping people maybe get Fit Life Foods to, the company would buy the food at a certain rate, and then it's subsidized for the employee. So just kind of different things that you can do with the wide variety of partners that we have available here in Tampa Bay. So some of the things that I think kind of moving forward and doing new types of wellness for today, first and foremost is to have that hybrid health education available and offering programs that can be used either on site or virtual or both. I'll tell you, I have done the hybrid webinar and on site at the same time, and it's a little difficult for the presenter because you're looking here, you're looking there, you're not quite sure, how that works, but it's helpful because some people really like the on-site part, and some people prefer to be able to, log in on their laptops or on their cell phones or whatever the case may be. But these programs, however they're offered, should have some webinar components so that they can be recorded, and then the recordings can be shared with the people who were unable to attend live. With the virtual health fairs, I think these are the way of the future, quite honestly, and not just because we do them ourselves, but just because I see how much better the participation is and how much easier it is for employees to connect with them, and how you can sort of have the information all there, and then the employee can kind of see what interests them or what needs they have, and then they can go specifically to those aspects of it. But for the most part, those types of events, they're offered on the first day, and then it's for 30 days. So even if they can't go on that first day, they have all this other time to attend them, and that's been pretty exciting. We also do what we call Be Well boxes, and we thought of this earlier this year, or maybe it was last year, I can't remember, but a Be Well box is essentially a box that gets sent directly to the employee home, and inside has a variety of different information that, depending on what the client wants. But these have been a really cool thing, and I see lots of other companies doing this as well, where you ship the box and inside has whatever, items were wanted. But in ours, we do some exercise items, we do some smart snacks, we do some health education cards, we'll maybe include some scented candles and other types of things that speak to wellness. And then inside it will say, use this candle during a meditation, or use this resistance band to do these 5 resistance band exercises. So it sort of gives that practical approach to the education that maybe they received in an earlier webinar or on one of the health education cards or something along those lines. And then lastly, sort of thinking about different and unique ways to engage. So, typically webinars are these 45-minute to an hour sessions. And we found over the last 2 or maybe 3 years that that's a long time for people to sit and attend to something. So we found that offering 15-minute webcasts and trivia, short trivia games and short one-day fitness competitions or 10-minute fitness competitions, small group health coaching, and other types of services have really had a much higher return on investment, because people have 15 minutes. They don't necessarily have 45 minutes to an hour, particularly if you're working with healthcare providers or teachers or other people who have appointments, kind of set up throughout the day. That's been a really big thing. And so definitely think about shortening the amount of time in one session, and maybe doing more sessions to cover the topic area. So the topics that I think are missing from a lot of wellness programs that I truly think are most important, and people have heard me say this all the time, exercise and nutrition, of course, is extremely important. But if we're not addressing stress and sleep, along with these other 3 topic areas, we're really missing a big part of what makes a person well, right? So stress management was probably the first topic area that we started writing programs on way back when I was at Beth Israel Hospital, because most Americans live under chronic stress. And it's become such a big issue because we know that chronic stress affects our sleep, it affects our mental health, it affects what habits and addictions we develop, and it affects inflammation. So it's very, it's a driving factor in a lot of people's unwell. So embracing intensive stress management education, meditation, stretching, these are all really important pieces to include in any sort of wellness program. In addition, sleep health is also, I would say, a priority. We know that on average, average Americans are sleeping 5.5 to 6 hours, which is a good 1.5 to 2 hours less than what's recommended. So most of us are walking around with sleep deprivation on a day-to-day basis. And we know that during sleep, the body is actually quite active, doing things like replacing the hormones that we've used throughout the day, re-energizing our cells, repairing damage, moving short-term memories to long-term memories. So if we're not getting enough sleep, then our bodies just aren't working to the best that they're able to. So definitely including information about sleep health and why that's important for employees. Next, of course, and I put this sort of front and center, mental health. For many decades, it was like mental health was here and physical health was here, right? But I think over the last, I would say, 8 to 10 years, we've really been kind of trying to connect those two, because certainly they impact each other together, right? So your physical health will affect your mental health and vice versa. But until maybe this past year, talking about mental health in a workplace was very taboo. So I'm excited to see that more and more companies are embracing the need and seeing how their employees really do want this stuff. We know that, like I said, depression and anxiety has gone up 2- and 3-fold over the last 18 months. And we also know that I read just the other day that there's a federal line, a federal disaster distress line that people can text to when they're feeling like they're overwhelmed with COVID specifically. And the number of texts went up 1,000% last month. So it just shows you how much people are suffering. And again, the lack of conversation around mental health makes it, this sort of thing of I'm suffering alone, right? Instead of being able to talk about these things with our coworkers or other people around us. So we know that loneliness is a big factor and has gone up as well. Social media has a lot to do with that, which I always find sort of not funny in that way, but ironic, because I think the goal of social media originally was to connect people. And I think it did that at first. And now it's sort of dividing people on a variety of different ways. So I almost, at least for me, I turned off my Facebook on my phone because it was just too much for me. And I just said, this is not helping me in any way. So, it's recognizing what we need and trying to help people understand what they need, and then trying to provide those types of services. And then, of course, addiction and habit has to have a place in a wellness program, because for most people, they do what they do because it's a habit, or they do what they do because it's an addiction. And so, talking about food addiction, alcohol, nicotine, cannabis, prescription drug misuse, all of these things have become a much bigger issue, certainly since COVID, but even prior to that. So we want to talk to people about how their addictions and habits affect their behavioral choices, and really start to talk about that in such a way where, we can make it understandable and also provide resources to people who might need them to help them get through whatever it is they're getting through. And keep in mind that your mental health, your stress, and your sleep all have a lot to do with your addictions and your habits. So if we can try to, again, care for those first 3 pieces, we'll be better able and better resourced to deal with our addictions and habits. And then lastly, inflammation is a big deal. And this is something that I've been thinking about for quite a few years, because I have celiac disease, which is an inflammatory autoimmune disorder from gluten. And so I've been reading all of this information about inflammation and understand that inflammation is the precursor to pretty much every disease. So if we can control a person's inflammation from the inside through what we're eating and what we're doing with our bodies, we probably have a good chance at reducing our risk factors overall, and certainly even preventing or mitigating the diagnosis of chronic disease till later in life, which is really, a good thing overall. But when you go to the doctor, it's like these topics very rarely come up, right? They check your eyes, your ears, your heart, your thyroid, all these things, which are amazing. But I mean, I can't remember any time, and I have a very good doctor, where they talk about, hey, how's your stress? What's your sleep like? Let's talk about mental health. Let's talk about your addictions and habits, because those things are the precursors, right? They don't have actual symptoms that can be tested and blood drawn for, and so on and so forth. So having a wellness program that addresses those things can get people to a place where they understand it for themselves, and then they can go to their physician and say, my sleep is not great. These are the things that I'm worried about. And then the doctor can kind of help them with some potential fixes to that. So the more of that information we can provide folks, the better. And most inflammation is caused by the foods that we're eating, the stress that we experience, the alcohol that we're drinking, and then any other sort of substances that are, not food, and then certainly things within our environment. And not all of those things we have control over, but some of them we do. So, sort of looking at anti-inflammatory foods and trying to reduce the amount of foods that we eat that cause inflammation in the body overall. So next, I just want to talk a little bit about partnerships, because I don't think you can do these things on your own. And for most of us, I mean, our partnerships with the folks that we work with are invaluable, and they do a lot of things to help us make our programs even better. But again, if you're a company that's managing a wellness program, or you're a wellness provider yourself, these types of partnerships can be invaluable. So looking to the private sector or health organizations and inviting them into your workplace to do the things that they do, and to help people understand not only the educational piece, but what's available for them in their communities to help them with some of the things that they've just been educated on. So for instance, we partner with financial institutions to do financial wellness and financial education. And we do sort of that basic financial education, and then sort of tier 2 and tier 3. We partner with On Spot Dermatology. Some of you may have heard of them. They bring a dermatology bus to corporations to do full on dermatological scans. AHEC, of course, has a great smoking cessation program. One Blood, Simply Natural Acupuncture, and you can see a couple of the others here. But these companies are great to work with for us, because it allows us to say to some of our clients, oh, you want your people to get vision care, or some other type of service. Here's a great company you can call, and just let them know that you're part of a wellness program with Wishing Well Works, and they'll help you get started. And that's really great, because for a lot of times wellness stops at the education and doesn't kind of go into the place where, okay, I know what to do now, how do I do it? And so those partnerships are really, like I said, invaluable. So some unique titles that you could consider, and these are some of ours, but of course they're out there from lots of other companies as well. But just kind of to get you thinking about some of the deeper level topic areas that maybe some wellness programs could include, like helping people understand what stress does to the body, and really helping them understand, stress is in our lives to protect us. That's the original course for it. But unfortunately, most of our stress today is not related to our own survival. So does the fight or flight mode work for us? Sort of, but not really, right? So what does it do to each organ in the body and each system in the body? And how does it impact our thought processes and our habits and our addictions and our behaviors and our emotional well-being? Helping people understand anxiety and depression at a deeper level, and not necessarily clinically speaking, because I think a lot of people have symptoms of these disorders but aren't, but they're not diagnosed or they're not clinical in nature. But helping people understand the difference between stress and anxiety, practical relaxation, and giving people the how to do relaxation. So maybe having some meditation available for your employees where they can stop for 15 minutes and do a quick meditation, but also recognize there's millions of meditations on YouTube. Most of them are pretty good. Some of them, so-so, right? But self-care is a big thing that we should be talking about a little bit more, because again, when we take care of ourselves, we're much better able to take care of other people, whether those other people be family members, coworkers, or clients, right? When you bring stress and lack of sleep into the workplace, that affects your job on a variety of levels. So we really want to help our employees realize and give them the ability to practice good self-care. Managing parent overload, surviving the sandwich generation. And you can see some of these other titles here, but making sure that the programs that you offer really give people that deep dive information that's research-based and capable of sort of helping people understand some of that scientific information in easy to understand terms. One of my favorite things that we're doing right now is a lot on brain and gut health and the connections between the two of those. And I'll tell you, I'm sure a lot of you guys have started reading about some of that stuff, but the connection between the brain and the gut is fascinating to me. I just think it's so neat. And I don't know if that's from my own personal things that I deal with, or if it's on a professional level, but it's just very interesting. Talking a lot about pain and back and neck pain. If you look at sort of the 5 or so most common healthcare claims, they're type 2 diabetes, depression and anxiety, neck and back pain, heart disease, and cancer, right? So if we can kind of help people with some of these things, we can, potentially reduce our healthcare cost. Although I usually tell employers that they should be looking for retention and recruitment of employees over and sort of productivity over healthcare claims, because there's not a whole lot you can control with that overall. But and just kind of having titles that address certain issues like IBS or other digestive flare-ups, migraines, and things that people deal with on a day-to-day basis, instead of just sort of these blanket general topic areas. So in summary, a high quality wellness program will ensure that all of the employees, whatever they do, have access to the topics that interest them and can help them identify the choices, behaviors, addictions, habits, and environments that shape their lifestyle. Providing programming that increases engagement by meeting people where they are. So being able to provide things virtually and on site 24 hours a day. And using the ecological model as much as possible. And I don't know if everyone knows what that is, but the ecological model looks at a person and what they have going on individually, and then it looks at their family and what's going on in the family and how that affects them individually, and then what's going on in their social circles, either through work, church, schools, and so on and so forth, and how that affects their individual ability. And then lastly, how society and how all of those things affect the choices and behaviors that we have as individuals. So that, between that model and the social learning theory, and maybe Haslow's hierarchy of need, those 3 sort of theoretical approaches make for a really good basis of a wellness program. And then, of course, making sure that we're looking at internal and external motivation, a little competition, because that's always a good part to wellness, hybrid modeling, and then time-sensitive ways to increase engagement. So with that, I am happy to take some questions if anybody has one. I appreciate everyone's attention. I wasn't really looking at the chat, so I don't know. if there's
Thank
some
you,
questions.
Michelle. I think we're moving on with some sponsorship information, and we'll certainly roll back to the Q&A at the end of the presentation as well, just to
Perfect.
make sure we have everything covered. Thank you so much. That was awesome.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you, Michelle. I think we're just waiting for the slides to pull up. It is time to have a little fun with two truths and a lie. There we go. Okay, so if you've been paying attention to all the information we got today, we're going to start with the Wellness Council of Tampa Bay. We have our own little two truths and a lie. And the prizes, I think I mentioned, we're going to have the Amazon Halo band, some gift cards, and Yeti. So make sure you answer the questions. We will reach out to the winners at the end, probably tomorrow morning, and then we'll post them also on social media. So another reason to like us and follow us on all our social media outlets. But for the Wellness Council of Tampa Bay, if you want to start, there you go. The Wellness Council of Tampa Bay has only had one president since inception 12 years ago. The Wellness Council of Tampa Bay is supported solely on sponsorships with our great partners, and the Wellness Council of Tampa Bay is not on Facebook. So it looks like we got people doing the poll. It's jumping. Okay, let's go ahead and close the poll. Okay, if we want to share the results, it looks like 62% said C, 17% said B, and 21 said A. Okay, let's go to the next slide and we'll see the answer. C, we are on Facebook, we are on Instagram, and we are on LinkedIn. Steve Malla has been our only president since inception. He started this group, and we are solely supported by sponsorships. So thank you, guys. Okay, the next one up, our sponsor is Baycare. We're going to have Brittany Lynn and Jean Marie Scardino.
Hi, I'm Jean Marie Scordino, and we
Excellent.
just want to thank you so much for allowing us to be the title sponsor of this incredible event, because it is so incredible to be able to share with like-minded people, and for us to be able to focus on creating that better environment to create wellness for all we serve. And Baycare, and I know Brittany and I are really just so thrilled that we get to do what we do, but more importantly, that we get to be part of this organization and get to network and be part of sharing with all of you. So thank you so much to the Tampa Bay Wellness Council for putting this on and having us here today. And I'm going to turn it over to Brittany to share our truths.
Hello, I'm Brittany Lynn, and I'm on the east side. So Baycare, I guess I'll go over the questions. Let's see. A, Baycare is a leading not-for-profit hospital system that connects individuals and families in a wide range of services. We have 15 hospitals and hundreds of community locations. B is Baycare's mission is to improve the health of all that we serve through community-owned health services with that standard for high-quality, compassionate care. And C, Baycare is new to the specialty of corporate wellness and employer solutions.
Okay, I think it's time to wrap it up. You want to read the results, Brittany?
Yes, and the result is C. It looks like there was 92%, so that's pretty good. Baycare is honored to be assisting employers for the last 15 years, and actually Baycare as a whole is turning 25 next year. So between 35 years experience, 25 years of being Baycare, and 15 years of corporate, we're happy to be here to help. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, next up is Jen Bickle with Vitality.
Thanks, Trish, and thank you to the Wellness Council for the opportunity to share a little bit about Vitality. We are a health and well-being solution. We are dedicated to helping employees live their best life and really just positively impact organizational well-being. We actually have two platforms to choose from, so you can see those on the screen.
I won't share a lot of details on these because I know that we are short on time, but of course, I'm happy to have a conversation with anyone who's interested in exploring our capabilities in more detail. I will say that we do take a very personalized approach to wellness. Just like Chuck and Michelle have mentioned, we know that wellness is not one size fits all. Health is personal. We do really tailor solutions on an individual level so that it's meaningful to them. We also, develop programs and configure our solutions around an organization's goals and culture. Really taking that into consideration. We do assign a wellness strategy manager to each account. We have Janina on the line today as well, who is also local to Tampa. So I'm thrilled to have her on the team. We are carrier agnostic, so we can be implemented alongside any medical plan. In fact, we'll happily accept wellness funds from any carrier and often do that as well. We really do measure everything. We've found that we are very effective in, reducing health risks and claims costs. In a recent 3-year study, we actually found that our highly engaged members spent 15 to 19% less on health claims. So just very effective, and would love to, have a conversation with anyone who's interested. So the 2 truths and a lie. So A, Vitality has 2 separate platforms to choose from, and each comes with a marketplace of best-in-class well-being partners. B, each client is assigned a dedicated wellness strategy manager to develop and support a long-term engagement plan. Or C, in a recent 3-year analysis, Vitality found that our highly engaged members had a 12% reduction in annual claim spend. Looks like I didn't trick anyone. So we had a majority with the right answer. And as I mentioned right at the end, to kind of help everybody out, you can see on the next screen, the truth is that we had actually a 15 to 19.5% reduction in claim spend. And there you have it.
Great, thank you, Jen. Next up, we have Holly Murphy and Juliana Dilo from Tampa General Hospital.
Good afternoon, everyone. So my name is Juliana. I'm from Tampa General Hospital. I could share so much with you about our amazing organization, but I will be brief. We are the largest hospital in Tampa with 1,041 beds. And for the 6th consecutive year, we have ranked the #1 hospital in Tampa Bay by US News and World Report. What you're seeing on your screen is our 1TGH employer solutions. So this is where, whether you're looking for wellness and prevention programs that truly impact your bottom line and inspire behavioral change, on-site health screenings, testing, care navigation, access to health, and everything else you see featured here right in front of you, those are the solutions that we're bringing to your workforce. What I'm personally most proud of is the access to the expertise that you can find through 1TGH. So that means that your company will have access to our world-class providers, our registered dietitians, our leadership, and all the strategies that they use, and our wellness experts, just like Holly Murphy. What a lot of people don't know is that in-house, our wellness experts hold multiple degrees and professional certifications. And that's what your workforce can come to rely on through our employer solutions. So I'll hand it over to Holly to kick off our 2 truths and a lie.
I invite you to stand if you haven't done so already, because sitting is the new tobacco, right? All right, you see the 3 statements on the screen. A, TGH manages on-site employer clinics. B, TGH only provides services in Hillsborough and Pinellas counties. And C, TGH offers on-site flu shots and COVID vaccines to employers. Which one is the lie?
Yeah. I know my vote doesn't count. And it looks like.
Oh, okay.
Yep, we'll close the poll.
Okay. All right, next slide. All right, so it was not number one. We actually, as Juliana explained, have the ability and expertise to manage on-site clinics at any employer work site. Next slide. It was not number three. We actually have an on-site team of dedicated RNs that can do health screening and testing at employer sites like flu shots, COVID testing, as well as vaccine. So therefore it means the false statement was B. And if you go to the next slide, it really makes a nice picture. We actually serve our greater Tampa Bay area, Western and Eastern regions, and the state in a variety of ways. And we're also rapidly expanding in the West Palm Beach area and Eastern region. All right.
Okay, great. Next, we have Florida Department of Health in Pinellas County, Nolianda James.
Thank you, Trish. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm so glad to be here to support the Expo. Again, my name is Nolianda James, and I work with the Tobacco Prevention Program at the Florida Department of Health in Pinellas. The Department of Health is the tobacco-free Florida provider agency for our county. So tobacco is still a major health issue. Both using tobacco products and being exposed to secondhand smoke is harmful to health, as I'm sure you all know. And tobacco is the #1 preventable cause of death, disease, and disability. So Tobacco-Free Florida works to reduce Floridians' rates of tobacco use and to decrease exposure to secondhand smoke. We're here today because, unfortunately, workplaces can be a major source of exposure to secondhand smoke for a lot of Americans. So we promote and help businesses adopt tobacco-free policies so that they can not only protect the health of their employees, but also it's good for business as well. So businesses with tobacco-free policies have higher employee productivity and reduced healthcare expenditures. They also save money on cleaning costs and receive like less smoking-related complaints and lawsuits. Next slide, please. So with all these great benefits, we encourage you to go tobacco-free. The Department of Health has worked with many employers throughout Pinellas, like Raymond James, to help them adopt and implement tobacco-free workplace policies. So we offer lots of free technical support and resources, whether that's signage, presentations to employees, or connecting you with AHEC for on-site tobacco cessation classes and services. So if you're interested in going tobacco-free, or you'd just like to get more information about how to support your employees with tobacco cessation resources, definitely contact me. My information is on the screen. Okay, we can go into 2 truths and a lie. So first one, A, smoke-free policies are the only effective way to eliminate secondhand smoke exposure in the workplace. B, 10% of the US workforce remains unprotected by a local or state smoke-free law for all workplaces. And C, Tobacco-Free Florida's free services have helped over 230,000 Floridians to quit tobacco. Okay, so it looks like it's kind of split between A and B. So next slide. And if you click again. So the lie is actually B. If you click one more time. Actually, 40% of the US workforce is unprotected by local or state smoke-free laws for all workplaces. And that's why it's really important for employers to adopt tobacco-free policies to protect the health of their employees. Smoke-free policies really are the only effective way to eliminate secondhand smoke. Ventilation and just like opening windows is not enough. So if you'd like to talk more or just learn more, definitely contact me. Thank you.
That's great information. The next sponsor we have is Health and Wellness Professionals, Eugene Honrath.
Hello, guys. It's Eugene Honrath from Health and Wellness Professionals, and we are a nationwide corporate wellness screening company. Our headquarters are here in Tampa or Clearwater, Florida, and we specialize in on-site biometrics, home test kits. We actually have a proprietary home test kit, and then on-site vaccination clinics for both influenza and COVID vaccinations. You can go to the next slide. Here are just a couple of things that kind of make us a little bit different than a lot of our competitors. But I just want to highlight that we are very flexible, and we can kind of, as others have said today, I think it is very important that our offerings generally are specific to the carrier, specific to the broker, specific to the end user or the group that we're working with. You can go to the next slide. So this is our two truths and a lie. A is our oldest employee is almost 70 years old and has worked with us for almost 21 years. B, even though we're based in Florida, one of our largest patient pools is in Alaska. And then C, we do not have a CEO or any C-level executives.
I gotta say, Eugene, those are tricky. It's split.
Yeah, I wanted to pick some kind of like off the wall things, not your typical things, and a little bit unique with as us as a company. And that's coming from Trish, and she really knows us. So
yes, I've known him 12 years. They're great. I think we're closing the poll. So if you want to read the results.
Okay. So most people, let's see, it was kind of split, but most people chose that we don't have a CEO or C-level executives. Next was our oldest employee. And then finally, the last one was the largest patient pool. But you can go to the next slide. So A was a lie. So I'll explain the other two and then I'll get to A. We don't have a CEO or C-level executives. All of our top level management, including myself, are directors. It's kind of run as decentralized. It's decentralized. We all kind of make a decision together and we choose the direction of the company together. B was, it's kind of odd because we don't do many on-site screenings in Alaska, but we have quite a bit of home test kit patients in Alaska. And it is one of our top patient pools if you include kind of all of the things that we do. And then A is the lie. Our oldest employee, she's almost 80 years old. She's been with us. She was one of our first employees. Her name is Elka, which if you know me, that's kind of funny because my daughter's name is Elka and my wife had no idea that we had an employee named Elka. So when she called me and said, hey, I want to choose this name, I laughed out loud and she's like, what are you laughing at? I was like, well, we have an employee. She's a little old lady. At the time, she was still a little old lady as well. Her name is Elka. She's from Germany. And so the rest is history. But thank you guys so much. And then we have, you can't really see this. We donated a Halo band, which is basically a activity tracker without being a watch. So.
Okay, great. Thank you, guys. I see that we're in portrait mode, or what do you call that? If everyone can turn on the cameras for a second, I want to get a picture. If you're okay with getting your, everyone turn your camera, say hi to everyone that you just spent 2 hours with. All right, few more and then I'll take a picture. And of course I'll have Wendy post it. Because I'm from the generation, I didn't get my first cell phone until I was 37, so. All right, there we go. Okay, great. Well, that wraps up this presentation, this expo. Steve, do you have anything to add?
Sure. I just want to say thank you to Michelle and Chuck and all our sponsors. We are going to hang on the line here. It is 3 o'clock. We're going to hang on here. If anybody has any questions, hopefully Chuck and Michelle have a couple of minutes if anybody does. And also we'll leave some time here just to chat as an opportunity to network with one another. So I'd like to kind of open it up if anybody has any questions on anything you heard today from one of the sponsors or one of the presentations. We'd love to hear from you.
Our next meeting will be in 2020 and it will be virtual, correct?
That's
Staying
correct.
virtual? Staying
Well,
virtual.
Yeah, we're going to stay virtual for at least 6 months, but hopefully to get back in person where we really thrived over the first 10 years together. So just bear with us, but I can't wait for that time when we're all comfortable to come back together in the same room.
Are the slides available? People want to know.
If Chuck and Michelle, are you okay with the slides being shared?
But it'll be 2022.
Yeah.
We got you. We got you.
Our spring meeting is usually in March. The date will be announced in the newsletters and on our social media, so just keep an eye out. Usually we'll have a summer one in June, but this June also the National Wellness Institute will be in Orlando. So that's great to have it in our state. Very convenient. Just wanted to give a shout out to them because they're great partners to present today.
And
go ahead.
We usually put the resources on our website. So people are asking for the slides. If the presenters will give them to us, we will put them on our website. I believe they will be, right, Steve? And then it is recorded. We are live right now, and you will find the recording on Facebook. Hi, Facebook. And yeah, we do have a YouTube channel. I didn't really mention that because there's not much to mention about it besides we have a channel and there's something on there. But if
we're working on the YouTube, and we'll have a couple of the past ones that we've recorded. We'll have on there, hopefully here the next month or two.
Great. Does anyone want to share anything they're working on right now, or any questions that could help you build your wellness program, or anything that this group, you have an active group here of professionals with a lot of experience. It's a great opportunity.
Yeah, I have a kind of a quick kind of statement that came up with a client of ours that we've been working with for quite some time, and they mentioned to us that 2021 versus 2020, because we were kind of talking about the COVID times, but year to date, 2021, their engagement overall was down. Whereas in 2020, it was higher than 2021. And I was shocked by that number. I thought both years would be considerably down. So it was interesting to get that number from them. I mean, we've seen kind of overall engagement drop over the last 2 years, but it was interesting that 2020 was better than 2021.
People might have had more time for self-care in 2020. People might have really pushed hard in the New Year's resolution in January. And then because they were on that resolution, maybe of walking, exercising, and then COVID hit, they were able to maybe continue that resolution more than usual because our lives are busier without that restriction, possibly. Yeah. Anybody else?
I think 2020, we were all working from home mostly, and my clients really put a lot more time into pushing the virtual, pushing inclusion of the family members. So I think they worked a little harder at the engagement because everyone was home. That's right. What I feel. The virtual really took off and people embraced it.
And I was going to mention that's interesting because the preventative care went down drastically in 2020, and it has thankfully gone back up in 2021. So it's kind of the opposite of what you're seeing, wellness trend wise, or corporate wellness.
Yeah, and I think too, in 2020, a lot of employers scrambled to put out resources for employees dealing with this sudden pandemic. And I think a lot of employers were just looking for new and innovative ways to reach people, and people were actively accepting it. As they were searching for some new resources to help them, and obviously a lot of them were virtual. And so I just wonder if employers have kind of stepped back a little bit on their approach, or
Probably having to deal with people. Are we coming into the office? Are we not coming into the office? All policies and all that stuff,
Right.
instead of just, we need to get them out some wellness things so they can be healthy at home. Very true.
I think the presentations were awesome today, and I appreciate both speakers. As far as prevention, I think, whenever we've promoted anything that had to do with self-care to boost the immune system after COVID, we've had a good participation in that. Any new information that could be shared in that regard. But I was just curious of those online, if you plan to implement any of the information or look into it a little bit more, like a lot of the 122 low cost ways for engagement and ideas from the National Wellness Institute. And then they also promoted the wellness inventory summary, which would be great. Michelle had some good information. I think one of the things I made note of is to send a wellness packet to our wellness champs. We need to support them. And if we can provide them with some tools to do that, I think it would be appreciated, just a nice surprise for the new year. So those are some of the things that I've made note of, and just wondered what anybody else might have jotted down, or what they have planned to really promote well-being in the new year coming up. That's our high time to run those promotions when everybody's making their New Year's resolutions.
And this is something fun I had seen on a meeting. We have about 25 left on the call, 21. If everyone wants to post in the chat 1 or 2 things they took away from today's meeting that they're going to implement next year, that would actually help the rest of us. So if you guys don't mind, just everyone blast in the chats, just 1 or 2 things you took from the presentations today. I think we'll have time to wrap it up. I can't type very fast on. This is great.